Hi everyone. So as promised, I'm going to do a frequently asked question FAQ live video for you regarding our fat fast that we've been doing this week. There's a whole lot of you doing a fat fast with me this week, and I really appreciate the support and encouragement and the real positive feedback that I've been getting from you all. I've posted a whole bunch of stuff, and I think that some of this stuff sometimes gets missed. But if you go back to my posts from the beginning of last week, most of them, except for maybe a couple of personal things here and there, have been about a fat fast. So I've posted a blog post written by Megan Ramos called What is Fat Fasting and When Should You Do It? And I've posted a food list. I've posted a few other things about how and why you would fat fast and what to eat during a fat fast. So there's quite a bit of information just in the past few days on my feed if you go back and read through. And of course, since I started the fat fast this week, today's the end of my second day. So today's Tuesday. So Monday and Tuesday, I've posted basically quite a few recipes that simple recipes, of course, because fat fasting is pretty simple. So some simple recipes that you can try if you are fat fasting. So I won't recap any of this stuff that's already there because I think you can just go back and read that. And the reason why I'm standing here or sitting here today is because you've got a great view. I don't know if you can see behind me, and if you can hear, that's my little puppy right there. Snoring away, and he's basically healing after having his surgery today. He just got neutered today, and so I thought I would sit here with him. It's pretty late for us, and I still got a 10-year-old walking around the house who should be sleeping. But anyhow, online schooling brings about some poor habits. So anyway, I've written down a few questions that I've gathered from you guys this week. But a lot of these answers, as I said, are in my blog posts, okay? Not just blog posts, but all the other posts that I have posted this week. But when you ask me questions, and you can write some questions below, and I'll try to answer all of them if I can. When you write me questions, I often answer. So if you look back at my posts and some of the comments, you might get some answers. But here's the most frequently asked questions that I've gotten about fat fasting this week, okay? So one question I got quite a bit was about the CBD oil. And the only reason why this question came up for the fat fast week was because I shared with you guys that besides how I'm eating and what I'm eating, I'm also working on daily cortisol lowering techniques. So stress relief. How do I lower my stress daily? And one of the things that I've been doing for probably 3 months now, which has been very helpful, is I've been taking CBD oil. I do use an European brand because I live in Portugal. It's a full spectrum brand. Full spectrum, not brand, but a full spectrum tincture. And I take about 3 to 5 drops in the evening under my tongue before bed. I do this because it really helps with sleep. And sleep is something I've struggled with for a really long time. And if you have sleep trouble, then that has a direct impact on your insulin production and on your insulin resistance. So if you have PCOS or diabetes or weight concerns, you're going to have to address your sleep. So that's the reason why I do CBD oil. If you're looking for a North American brand, I don't have any personal experience with a brand, but I know Larry Diamond, one of our coaches in our program, the fasting method, has recommended a brand called Lazarus Naturals. Okay, so you can go on their site. I know they have a full spectrum tincture as well. So even though it's a bit expensive, it's definitely been worth it for me. So this is actually one of the most common questions I've gotten. Lots of questions around cortisol lowering and why and what to do, and I've just sort of given you some answers there. Another question that I've gotten, which I have alluded to in many of my posts, is why you would fat fast. And of course, one of the major reasons why you would fat fast is because of carb cravings. So somebody asked, is this good for carb cravings? Absolutely. That's one of the main reasons why you would fat fast. The other one was, would this be a great thing to do after a cheat meal, quote unquote? Yes, absolutely. So In Megan's blog post that you can find in the link in my bio, what is fat fasting and when should you do it? She of course talks about how fat fasting is a great bridge. So a short-term temporary diet, 2 to 5 days is what I usually recommend. And you can you can go to my food pyramid that I share. There's a reel that I shared with my food pyramid, and it sort of alludes to how to fat fast. But basically 2 to 5 days, it's a temporary diet that you do to either get started with fasting or to recover after a trip or a weekend or a period of time of higher carb consumption where you might be craving, or you might be as I said, the insulin beast has moved into your house. Your insulin is very high, either because you've been sick or because you've been going through a very stressful period. There's a whole bunch of reasons why you would fat fast. So you can find a whole lot of those reasons in the posts that I have shared with you guys. Okay, so that's one of the main questions. Somebody else also posted that, I've tried a low carb diet before, I've tried a keto diet before, or I've tried fasting before, but I don't feel well because I feel really dizzy, like my blood sugars have dropped. The most likely reason why you probably don't feel well when you transition to a low carb diet or intermittent fasting is probably lack of electrolytes. So you're going to have to look up some of this information. It's pretty important that you find out about electrolytes, how much salt to take, how much magnesium, that kind of stuff. So pretty important information there. So electrolytes is a big one, both when you transition to a low carb diet and when you do intermittent fasting. And the reason for that is because as you transition to a lower insulin state, you go into this release mode. So you do lose some fluids and electrolytes, and you need to replace that, okay? So there's some questions here. What are you looking for in a CBD oil when searching for one? Well, you're looking for a reputable brand. So again, I use one in Europe called Green Culture, and you can look this up. It's here in Portugal, and I think they ship to all over Europe. And in North America, Larry Diamond has recommended the brand Lazarus Naturals. So you're looking for a reputable brand because there's a whole lot, and you're looking for a full spectrum tincture. Okay. Some other questions that I've gotten is I've never fasted, or I'm scared to fast, or I've never followed a low carb diet. There's nothing like just doing it. Okay. So my 3 steps to success that I've shared with you guys often is, number 1, you have to decide that you want to do something. Okay. So if you go into something kind of like, oh, I'm going to try, you're probably not going to do it, right? So if you've decided that you're going to do something, you're likely going to follow through, as long as you are, number 2, prepared and you know what to do. And that's what I'm trying to do with you guys this week when it comes to fat fasting, like explaining to you how to do it. Okay. And then number 3, you just have to do it. Okay. So, that's really an answer to most of these questions. Now, hands down, the most common question that I get when it comes to fat fasting. So it's a list of 8 very simple foods. It's a very short-term diet. So there's a reason why it's, we choose these foods. They're lower down on the food pyramid that I shared with you. And this food pyramid is based on insulin. So these 8 foods at the base of the food pyramid are the 8 foods that we know to produce the least amount of insulin. So it's going to help lower your insulin. It lowers your cravings. It raises your energy. You go into fat burning mode, this ketogenic state, very, very quickly. It's a fast mimicking diet. So it puts your body into this lower insulin state, almost like a fast, okay? So the most common question that I get from fat fasting is, I don't eat bacon, or I don't eat pork. What can I replace it with? Replace it with one of the other 8 foods on the list, okay? The reason why we choose these foods is because they're the lowest insulin producing foods. And yes, pork belly or bacon is lower on the insulin producing pyramid. So is eggs and avocado and salmon and sardines and olives and leafy greens and healthy fats like butter and ghee and coconut oil. So if you don't eat bacon, just eat one of the other things. That seems simple enough, but then I get people asking me other questions like, Well, how about steak? Or how about other types of veggies? Again, the answer is pretty simple. It's not that you can't or shouldn't or these foods are not healthy. It's that if you're doing this short-term, temporary, 2 to 5 day diet or bridge, you want to stick to the foods that are lower on the insulin producing pyramid. Okay, so if you if you look at it from that point of view, then hopefully you'll understand that bacon is lower on the insulin spectrum than steak. But it doesn't mean that you can't have steak for the rest of your life. Okay, it's again short-term plan. It's a fast mimicking diet, and that's what you're trying to do. Okay, so even though I'm saying this, I know I'm going to get this question about a million things. Can I eat tofu? Can I eat broccoli? You can eat all the foods that you want in your regular diet when you transition out of a fat fast. But if you're fat fasting, choose 3 to 4 foods. It's supposed to be simple. It's supposed to be repetitive. It's supposed to be the lowest possible insulin producing foods around. And these are it. Yes, you can do a type of fat fast with other foods a little bit higher on the insulin spectrum. For example, I've seen people fat fast or do a type of fat fast with chicken wings because they just absolutely could not or did not want to eat these 8 foods that I've just recommended. That's okay. That might work for you because, again, it's a little bit lower on the insulin spectrum than bread and sugar and sweets and chocolate and whatever else you might be eating. So transitioning from those foods to chicken wings is a lower insulin producing bridge. So that might work for you, okay? But the reason why we do a fat fast this way is because these are the absolute lowest insulin producing foods. They're not going to feed the insulin beast, okay? So that's why it works. And if you go into it with that intent, that goal, then I would choose 3 to 4 or maybe all 8 of these foods if you want more variety, okay? Another common question is about cholesterol. This is always going to come up. When you've got such a diet that's so high in saturated fat, people are very concerned about their cholesterol. I'm going to be repetitive here, but again, remember that this is a short-term bridge, 2 to 5 days. And so even if it were true that all of these foods would raise your cholesterol, 2 to 5 days of eating this way wouldn't have a major long-lasting impact. I'm personally of the opinion that high cholesterol concerns are due to something else. But if you'd like more information on this, please check out cholesterolcode.com. I think it's a great site. There's many other sites that will talk about cholesterol and saturated fat and all of these concerns when it comes to low-carb diets. And of course, a fat fast is a strict, very extreme sort of low carb, high in fat diet for a good reason. And I've explained, I think, why that is. So this comes up. It's a concern. If you're concerned about it, look up maybe this site and a few other things. Okay. Will I lose weight on a fat fast? Surprisingly, even though it's very high in fat and very high in calories, most people do lose weight on a fat fast. And the reason is simple. Again, it's because it's a low insulin, very low insulin, extreme low insulin diet. So your insulin goes down, you go into fat burning mode. And you could see in my post today that I went from having 0 ketones to having my ketones at 2.2 today. And if you know what that means I'm in a pretty high fat burning mode just in 2 days of doing a fat fast. So if weight loss was my objective, which it isn't, I wouldn't notice some weight loss this week, some pretty significant weight loss. And most people do, but you do need to follow this up with something if you want to have continuous weight loss and if you want to keep that weight loss. So most people follow up with either alternate day fasting or some extended fasting. So I'm planning to do a 3-day fast after this for healing reasons and for a whole bunch of reasons that I'll talk about next week. Okay. So, if you don't prepare, this is another thing. Oh, I want to do it, but I didn't have the right foods. If you're not prepared, then it's going to be much harder. So remember again, the 3 steps to success: decide, commit, number 2, prepare, and then number 3, just do it. Okay. No excuses, no delays. Now, today I posted something that I think is pretty relevant. I posted a quote, not my quote. I didn't come up with this. It's an old quote that says, "Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good." Okay? The fasting method, which I proudly work with and have for 5 years. This is my 5th year with the fasting method. When I first came in, Megan shared with me that the fasting method's motto was progress, not perfection. So basically saying the exact same thing, all right? So very often we get questions like, well, why canned sardines? Why not fresh sardines? Go right ahead. Fresh sardines are obviously better than canned sardines, but don't stop yourself from doing a fat fast if you've got canned sardines, okay, as opposed to fresh sardines. I had this asked this week. And also bacon, nitrate-free bacon. Awesome. Find yourself some nitrate-free bacon. But if you can't find nitrate-free bacon, if you want to have regular bacon for 2 to 5 days, you're good to go. And I'm going to get this question, and do get this question about grass-fed and organic versus non-grass-fed, non-organic. Again, if you can get the best, get the best. If you can get perfect, get perfect. But if you can get good, and I do think that most of these things, having meats and having bacon in this case for a fat fast, this is good. It might not be perfect, but it is good, and it fits with the goal that we're intending, which is to lower insulin. Okay, so I hope this makes sense for you guys. Progress, not perfection, is really the way to go for long-term success. You do the best that you can, okay, with what you have around you. And the same goes for many other things. So for example, let's say you start a fat fast, but life gets in the way and you have a slip up, like many of you may have had. Do you let it all go to waste? No, you just keep going, continue, all right? And the same goes for every other thing that you do. If you have a cheat day or whatever you want to call it, just move on, okay? Dust yourself off and move on, okay? Don't let the perfect be the enemy of good, okay? And then these are a bit repetitive, but I'm going to get these questions, as I said, all the time. Why leafy greens and not broccoli or asparagus or cauliflower? It's just because leafy greens are lower on the insulin spectrum than these other things. And we had to choose, not had to, but we've realized that these specific 8 foods that we talk about when you do a fat fast, and again, remember, it's very short term, are lower on the insulin spectrum, and that's what we're trying to do. Okay, so a couple of other things that I got from you guys. I get these questions, very makes a lot of sense that I get these questions. If I'm trying to conceive, or if I'm pregnant, or if I'm breastfeeding, can I fat fast? My answer, and I hope this makes sense to you guys, is very simple, okay? Real food is great for trying to conceive, for fertility, while you're pregnant and while you're breastfeeding. And that's all I'm going to say about that for now, okay? How about exercise and fat fasting? Great. The fat fast foods are very nutrient dense, very rich, very nourishing. And when you exercise, I realize many of you are very hungry or hungrier than when you weren't exercising. So you're going to want to have these rich, nourishing, great foods. And they're going to be great fuel for your exercise. So that should not be a problem at all. More repetition. Why no nuts on a fat fast? Nuts, even though they're low carb, they're much higher on an insulin spectrum than the foods on the fat fast, okay? So are they good or bad for you? That's not what I'm saying. All I'm saying is that they produce a lot more insulin. So if you're trying to lower insulin, if you're trying to lower cravings, then things like nuts and dairy are not going to be helpful in this transition. You might do great with nuts and dairy once your insulin is a little bit lower, okay? And so on and so forth. So I hope that I answered some of your questions. This video has turned out to be quite long. I'm be happy to answer more of your questions. If you just comment below, I'll try to get to them. And if I can answer them, I will. All right, guys, have a great evening. I hope your fat fast is going well. Stay tuned for the next couple of days for moving on to maybe an extended fast with me, maybe a 3 or 5 day or 7 day fast, whatever you're willing to do. And I'll answer your questions about that too, okay? All right, take care. Bye.